It's Chris with Tactical Defense Institute. Tonight I'm coming to you from the dungeon, honestly, just to talk about one of my favorite guns to shoot. Something that I think design-wise is super cool. You don't see it out in the wild a whole lot, but it's a whole lot of fun. It shoots really well, and I like the history of it. So I decided I was going to talk about it. And that would be the Daewoo series of rifle that originated in South Korea after the war. So there's a couple different ones. There's the Daewoo K1, they're all pre-banned, the K1s, the K1A1s with the wire stock. K2s had a solid folding stock. And then the import ban hit, right? The 89 import ban. And then they came into the country as the DR200, right? But let's talk about the origins of Daewoo Precision Industries rifle. After the Korean War, U.S. is done. Yay, South Korea still exists. They were using a lot of leftover M1 Grands, M1 carbines that were supplied by the United States. You move forward, they start re-outfitting their military, and they are buying M16s, Colt M16s from the United States. And it's pretty pricey for them, right? South Korea's like, hey, we're spending a big chunk of money on these weapons for our military. We got a lot of smart people. We got some companies within this nation that can design a lot of great things. How about we come up with something on our own so we don't have to buy weapons from the outside? And Daewoo Precision Industries, they have their hand in a ton of stuff. Daewoo does everything from cars to, I think, electronics and whatnot. Machinery, just all over the map. And they set up a section that did weapons design and built the Daewoo series of rifles for the South Korean government. It's an interesting mix of, and you're going to see that, of AK-47, M16 with some hints of the FAL kind of thrown in there just slightly. So what does this look like? Well, this is a converted post. It was imported during the ban. Obviously, with some 922R compliant stuff, you can make changes to them and bring them into different configurations than the old thumb hole stock, how they were, to include a FAL style tubular stock like the old paratrooper FAL folding stocks with a few different adapters, right? But what I find is interesting is the guts of this rifle. And that's what we're going to get into next, right? As we get into the guts. Actually, before I get into that, you'll see that very much resembles a little bit on the lower half of the M16 M4 series of rifles, right? Except, obviously, we have an external charging handle, right, on the right side, much like an AK with a reciprocating bolt. But the magazine button, trigger finger activated, right? Much like exactly like the AR-15 M16 series of rifle. You get on the left side, the external left side, right? Factory, it only had a bolt release. It only had the bottom half right here. This is an aftermarket part, American made, from Pierce Precision Industries, or Pierce Precision Engineering, sorry. An Ohio guy that makes some specialized parts for Daewoo rifles that actually has the bolt release top half as opposed to just the bottom half. So again, very reminiscent of the M16 rifle. All right. Safety selector, again, same thing on that left side where the M16 has it. You can go ambi if you want to. They actually make 45-degree throws if you want to. And the scope rail. Now my stock adapter, that's Stormworks Industries, as well as the scope rail on top are both Stormworks. And this is an Ace of the folding stock. On the front, right, you see I have a US muzzle device, right, to allow me to run my silencer co-mount suppressors versus what it came with. And on the external side of the design, this is where we get a little bit of that FAL. The front of the gas tube is a regulator that is an adjustable gas piston, right? The factory one had 4 positions. This one is manufactured by Pierce Precision Engineering. Actually has 6 gas settings, so you can control how much gas gets bled back into the piston. Very much like the gas regulator on an FAL. As opposed to being click adjustable like the FAL, this just has set positions, right? Push it in, rotate, drop it into the new position, right? Whatever you want to make, whether you're running suppressed, unsuppressed, depending on the ammo, you can make it reliable to what you're running. Hooded front sight, non-adjustable for windage. That's all handled on the rear side, so I won't get too deep into the rear side. It's kind of M16A1 style that you need a tool or the tip of a bullet to do. All right, so let's look at the guts and see the kind of what I think is really the cool part of this, the design factor of the Daewoo rifle. Doing it. All right, it's cleared. All right, I know it's cleared. So let's take a look here. All right, you'll see on the back side right here, tilt this up just a tad for you. All right, we got this little tab that sticks up right here. Right, it's textured and it has two pieces. It has the center piece, which has a spring driving it forward, and we have the two side pieces. This is actually the takedown, right? Call it a takedown lever. You have to drive it forward, but you can't if the center piece is rotated forward, which is its natural position. You have to actually drive that center portion back. That allows enough space that I can drive this, well, if you don't flip it forward a second time, I can drive this forward and break the rifle in half. And you can see, well, maybe you can see, maybe you can't see. There we go, that's a little bit better. All right, so when we drive this forward, it depresses this rear extension in right here that allows the two halves of the receiver to separate. All right, now as I pull these parts, all right, you're gonna see recoil assembly, kind of reminiscent of an AK-47, right? Captured spring, right? You know, very AK-like recoil spring assembly. As I pull the bolt back using the external charging handle, all right, I'm gonna get to the point at the farthest portion back right here, right? And the charging handle is a standalone separate piece. Now, this is not the factory one. This is, again, an aftermarket upgrade from Pierce Precision Engineering that makes it a little bit easier to handle, but they come out the exact same way. All right, we'll set that to the side. As the bolt continues to come out, you're gonna see what looks to be an M16 bolt that's basically been cut down, all right? Very much been cut down. There's no gas key because this is a piston gun. It is not a direct impingement. We don't need a gas key on top of the carrier. Where the front half of the gas key is, they've actually moved the cam pin back a little bit farther, right? And then machined that slot for the bolt charging handle. Let me slide that in here, where it slides in from the outside. All right, so you can see where this slides in from the outside. All right, so it's kind of a nifty little design. But other than that, it is essentially an M16 bolt, right? With no back half. You still have a firing pin, right? You still have an extractor that's internal to the bolt itself, not the carrier, right? You still have the cam pin locked in place by the firing pin, just like an M16, right, or an M4. The big difference that you see here is you have a big machined oval right on top of this carrier. What is that machined oval for? That is where your gas piston, right, if I pull this all the way out, that is where your gas piston rides inside, right, the weapon right there. It connects your gas piston to the bolt itself, just drops into that recess right there. As I lay the rifle down here, there we go. All right, you can see it's a pretty slick little setup, very simple, right? And you see the design influence from the AK-47 with the gas piston, right? But the design influence from the M16, which they were familiar with, having been buying them from the United States for several years, right? And said, yeah, we like the rotating bolt, we like the design of the M16 bolt. We're going to cut it down, machine a slot to connect our piston to it, right? Get rid of the gas key, put a charging handle, right? Cut out, and boom. You have essentially the combination of an M16 with an AK-47, and the adjustable gas of the FAL. So it's really an interesting, simple yet complex, I don't know, probably not complex, just unique thought process on how to combine those different designs into an extremely reliable, extremely soft shooting, and accurate weapon system that uses standard STANAG mags, standard M4 mags, right? Some parts interchangeability from the M16 system, with a little bit, not everything inside's the exact same, right? But for someone that has the manual of arms of the M16 in their repertoire or the AK, it's really a simple design and super reliable. So again, it's one of my more pleasurable guns and favorite guns to shoot. I know SVT Motive was talking at SHOT Show, I think it was this year, 2025, about having US made Daewoos, which would be super cool. Most people probably have seen, or their experience with the Daewoo is during the LA riots in the 90s, where you had the quote unquote rooftop Korean in the red shirt smiling, holding his Daewoo K2 up, pointed up, kind of in a high carry position. And it's kind of got a unique history. So as we throw this back together, right, it's all just the exact reverse, like any gun going back together. You can insert that piston to this point here, right? I can grab my bolt carrier, get it locked in, right? Dropped in that slot, start inserting to here. Once I have the appropriate slot for my external charging handle or my bolt handle, drop it in, drive the whole thing forward. My recoil spring slides right in along top, all the way up. And you can see spring-loaded pressure there. As I drive forward, connect the two, drop them in, and I can rotate that forward and you hear it click back, right? It means that this is locked in. See, a very unique design that, unfortunately, I don't think it gets the love and credit that it should for what it is. It's a lot of fun to shoot. It's very reliable. It's not light, but it's not crazy heavy, and some of that is in the stock, right? But I kind of like having the folding stock on it, throw it in a case, go into the range, whatever I'm doing. You can run it, AK style, coming underneath, whatever you want to do, right? But yet your reloads are still very much M4, right, coming in. So just kind of a unique gun. So I thought I'd take a few minutes, talk about it, the design factors. Again, what most people are going to see, you're going to pay huge dollars for a pre-band Daewoo, a K1 or a K2 are pushing, gosh, I think the cheapest one I've seen was above $3,000, so maybe $3,600 for a K1, which has or K1A1, the wire stock. K2s maybe a little less, but they keep getting higher and higher. So for a less expensive alternative, and when I say less expensive, I'm talking like probably $1,500 to $2,000. You can still find some of these Daewoo DR200s out there. Kind of a cool one to have in the collection, have in your repertoire. They didn't export a ton of them, so you don't see them all over the world. It's one of the reasons it's not in our foreign weapons class. It's just not something you pick up in some random country right outside of South Korea. They have modernized versions with the MITS rail system. They do SBR 10.5-inch versions. There are some guys out there making custom barrels for these that are running 300 blackout, right? Which is kind of unique. So it's pretty cool. If you get the chance to shoot one, you should. It's a lot of fun. If you got questions, leave them in the comments. Hit the subscribe button, right? See when we'll print out something new. I like talking about guns and going over the history and the design factors of different stuff that I own and shoot and run in classes. So let us know if you need anything. If not, it's Chris from TDI, and we hope to see you in a class in 2026. We'll see you on the range. Stay safe. Thanks a lot.